This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow with your boys here. You can call me Truck, and I am inside of a truck currently at work. And I'm joined as always by the infamous Shane O'Mac. And today we're talking Week 14, red light, green light, fantasy football, players we like, players we don't like. Shane, we are here. It's playoffs. This is the last week before playoffs. People got to secure their spots. Most important week of the season right here, arguably for those who haven't clinched already. But how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. This is like last week. You got 6 teams on a bye, some big time players on those teams at certain positions. Like the thing I always stress,
we got
Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Patriots, Commanders. So you could be looking be without like Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Brian Robinson, some big time performing.
Oh yeah, backs, definitely.
Sure. So.
Yeah, very cruel for the NFL to do this to us in Week 14. So that's tough, but we overcome, right? We not improvise, but overcome the adversity.
Yeah,
is that the right words?
That sounds good. Yeah, we adjust. Like the thing I stress to people also is like, if you're not fighting for a playoff spot, if you've got a playoff spot locked up, like go ahead and be proactive with pickups this week. Like be looking at the Week 15 matchups, like kickers, defenses, either for yourself or even to play keep away from other teams you'll face for other positions.
Yeah, and hopefully you picked up Isaac Guerendo.
Yeah, like the perfect example,
Hopefully.
like I didn't get Guerendo, but I went ahead and picked up Rico Dowdle. I didn't need him, but he's playing the Carolina Panthers in Week 15. So I at least want to keep that startable option against that defense away from me just in case.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle's good enough to really make it happen against the defense. So we'll see what happens, but great advice. Definitely be proactive with your pickups this week if you secured a playoff spot. But without further ado, Shane, let's talk about Week 14. Let's get right into it. Red light quarterbacks. Who was number one on your list?
The first guy I've got is Brock Purdy. I know it's going to be tough with 6 teams on a bye maybe, but I've got replaceable options for you when we get to the green light list. Listen, before that snow game, he was putting up top 7, top 8 QB finishes over the last 4 weeks. But I don't think the shoulders really 100% with him. And then the defense, the Bears are great pass defense, top 12 and fewest passing yards allowed per game, third fewest passing touchdowns allowed per game. And then when I was looking, only 4 quarterbacks had gone over 18 or more points against them. So now Purdy has got a bad matchup, and he is without CMC and Jordan Mason, and he could be without Trent Williams again.
And not to mention, where the hell has Deebo Samuel been? I mean, Deebo has been no help to him whatsoever. He's like last 3 games, like wide receiver 51, wide receiver 71, wide receiver 82. Like just, I don't know what's going on with Deebo this year. Ayuk going down was such a big hit to this offense early on in the season. So I agree with you. Brock Purdy's on my list as well. I would not be starting him this week. And he's had success over the last few weeks prior to last week. So, yeah, I'm on the same boat as you. That's my red light quarterback as well.
The other guy I had was I'm red lighting the guy who actually leads the league in passing yards. But
why would you do that?
I know. Well, he's top 3. I don't know if he still leads. I think maybe after the last couple of weeks he may be down to 2nd or 3rd. But Geno Smith playing against Arizona. This Arizona defense at home is going to be, I think, a little bit tougher matchup. Listen, the last time 2 weeks ago when he played Arizona in Seattle, he was the QB 20. Last year against this defense, in 2 games, he was held under 220 yards throwing in 2 of those games. And then over the last 3 games, Arizona's given up the 5th fewest passing yards per game. So I just think it's a tough matchup in Arizona this week for Geno.
When you said the leader in passing yards, I thought you were going to red light Joe Burrow for a second. I was like,
no, not with this matchup.
What are you doing here? But yeah, no, I agree. Geno Smith
Yeah.
is hard to trust right now. Arizona's been playing a lot better as of late. So a couple other guys that have tough matchups this week that I would feel very hesitant starting. Matthew Stafford against Buffalo. Buffalo's defense has been really good. And then another guy that we just saw overcome a bad matchup, Jameis Winston. What he did against that Denver defense was unbelievable and believable at the same time, with it being Jameis. But another tough matchup this week, but he's just seems to have God on his side. Jameis Winston does. So, but I'd be worrisome about starting those guys.
Yeah, and on your Stafford call also, he is dealing with an ankle injury. He's going to play, but he hurt his ankle towards the end of that game, and they said he's taking it easy on practice. So I think that's just one more tick in what you were saying, given the matchup.
Yeah, just tough. But let's talk about something nice. Let's talk about some green light quarterbacks who we start instead of these guys that we just mentioned.
Well, I told you if you have trouble benching Purdy, I've got two guys you can go grab off the waiver wire this week, and you can play in front of Purdy. And I'm just going to make the first one is my
Shane O'Mac shocker of the week.
Okay, what do we got here?
I am going with. It's a rush to go get Cooper Rush off your waiver wires and start this week. Put him in. I'm playing him over Brock Purdy. Listen, it doesn't sound like much, but he's had 18 points in 2 of his last 3 games. So that is a replacement bye week quarterback for sure. But I think he goes over the 20-point mark this week. Like last week on Thanksgiving, he didn't need a large pass volume to beat the Giants, but he will need a large pass volume against the Bengals. And the Bengals are giving up over 28 points per game, which puts them last in the NFL, third most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. And then over the last 3 games, they are allowing the most passing yards per game at 326 passing yards per game.
Okay. All right. You gave me a little faith in Cooper Rush.
Yes.
I like it. And if you're giving him the vote of confidence as the Cowboys guy, then I'll go with it because that's a good call there. All right. Well, I have my own version of
Shane
Trucks.
O'Mac shocker of the week.
Okay.
Doing my own rendition of Shocker of the Week. I'm going Aiden O'Connell.
Oh, yep. I thought
Aiden
about
O'Connell. Okay, now think about this, right? He just got the starting job last week. He played Kansas City. He threw for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So he looked good out there. He was getting it done. It helps when you got Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, who looks like a brand new wide receiver. But however, this week he's got Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is giving up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks in a per game basis. I'm just saying, look, if I had Brock Purdy and I see Aiden O'Connell or Cooper Rush on the waiver wire, I'm okay picking either one of them up and plugging them into my lineup.
Yep, I agree. That is somebody you could pick up.
Yeah.
The second guy I had that you could go pick up off the waiver wire in most leagues, and I can't believe I'm saying it, I got to the start of the year, but it's Will Levis. We're now looking at a guy who's thrown multiple touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. He faces a Jacksonville defense that's been in the bottom 3 all year in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, and passing yards allowed. But what I kind of like about this, like if you pick him up now, like this is somebody maybe if you don't have the greatest quarterback option, he goes out and has a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown game this week, you could even look to playing him for the first week of that playoffs when he faces that Cincinnati defense I just referenced that Cooper Rush is playing.
Yeah. Will Levis is just fascinating to me because what he's able to do and also what he's not able to do on the football field. So I like him this week. Jacksonville is such a great game for quarterbacks to play against. So I'm all in on Will Levis this week. All right, let's move over to running back. Shane, red light running back. Who is your guy that you're pumping the brakes on?
All right. He scored 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. I know you've got 6 teams on a bye and all those running backs at the beginning of the show I mentioned, but I would really implore you not to start Nick Chubb this week. Like I said, he's had the touchdowns, but the actual rushing production has been pretty dismal the last 2 weeks. 3 yards per carry, and then on Monday night, 2.3 yards per carry. And now he's facing the Steelers, who have allowed the 4th fewest rushing yards per game, 5th fewest rushing yards per carry, and they're top 12 in fantasy points allowed to the position. I just think like Chubb's not 100%, and against this defense, even with all these running backs on a bye, I would try to find another option.
Yeah, Chubb, you just can't trust him. The same since he came back from this injury. Something, maybe he's still just not 100%. I don't know what it is, but I mean, we saw a lot better stuff from Jerome Ford last week. So you can't trust Chubb, unfortunately. And that's sad because I drafted him in quite a few leagues, hoping that he would come back into form, but he hasn't. My red light running back this week is a 2-for-1 special. 2-for-1 special, Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Yep. For the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. If you look at it last week when Isaiah Pacheco was healthy, they both had 7 carries. Now, that's interesting because it's a 50-50 split, it looks like. Maybe we'll see it sway more in Isaiah Pacheco's second game back. Maybe he'll get more of the carries, but either way, the Chargers are giving up the fewest touchdowns to running backs and the 5th fewest points per game to running backs. So just a bad matchup all around, plus the timeshare. I don't want any of it. Yeah, I don't. There's no scenario I see that they give him the majority of the carries. I mean, they want to get him into the playoffs. Like even I don't know if you watched that game, even that like 32-yard run he had, he did not look like full healthy Isaiah Pacheco on that run. So I agree. In similar thinking fashion to what you had on your thought process for those guys, I would also red light Chuba Hubbard this week. Like we saw last week, 12 touches for Hubbard. Jonathan Brooks got up to 9 touches. So I think they're getting Brooks worked back into maybe it's going to be more of an even split in touches. So he had an awful game. I think it was 3 fantasy points against a really good matchup against Tampa Bay. Now he gets the Eagles, who are top 7 in fewest rushing touchdowns per game, fewest rushing yards per game, and top 5 in fewest fantasy points to running backs. Yeah, he's on my list as well. He is definitely on my list as well. Struggled last week, but the Panthers are looking much better. I mean, you can't argue the fact they ended up winning last game, and I mean, 2 weeks ago they almost beat the Chiefs. So team's looking better, but this week I don't know if they're going to be able to do that against the Eagles. So we'll see what happens. Yep. All right. Do you have any others, or is that it? No, those are my red light guys. Okay. What about green light? Shane, start us off. Green light running backs for this week. Well, my first guy is to all you rich owners out there. If you won the sweepstakes on Isaac Guerendo, he is a smash start, not only this week, but next week. Like this week, this Chicago defense, great against the pass, not very great against the run. They have given up over 140 yards rushing per game in the last 3 games. And like we saw Guerendo be productive, like week 18 when he filled in, or week 8 when he filled in for Mason. He got 17 touches. He put up 19 fantasy points in that game. I think he could easily match that production. But you're going to want him also next week in first round of the playoffs when he faces the Rams that are giving up even worse amount of rushing yards than Chicago. Yeah, that's why everybody just dumped their fab, right? I mean, I bet 57, so 57% of the fab on him. I got him in a couple other leagues too. Some not even fab, some were just waiver wire priority. But yeah, I'm glad I got him. I'm just going in my lineup immediately. And he's staying there for a couple weeks. So that's where it's at. My green light running back for this week is Tyrone Tracy. Uncle Tyrone Tracy for the New York Giants. New Orleans has given up the 4th most points to running backs. They're a pretty good team to run the ball on. And Tracy, I mean, he had the last 2 games, he only had 9 carries, right? Prior to that, he had games of 20 carries, 18 carries, 16 carries, but still only with 9 carries, he's still finishing inside the top 25, top 30 of the running backs. So he's still a startable piece. I think this week they give him more than 9 carries. He reaches back to those old games where he was getting 15 or so carries. So I like Tyrone Tracy this week, and I'd be willing to start him.
Yeah, I think what's helping him is two things. Like, against Dallas, he got the goal line touchdown, so they're not yanking him for that, if they get down there. And then, like, the last 2 weeks, because I was looking at him also for my green light, he's had 6 and 5 points last 2 weeks of fantasy points just through receiving production. So he is the receiving back. So that should help him most games. So I agree with you on Tracy. 3 quick guys I just want to mention, or 2 guys I want to mention for owners that may be without Henry and Jonathan Taylor, or you've got Brian Robinson, some combination of 2 out of those 3s, and you are in a desperation, have to pick up a low guy off the waiver wire. First guy is Ray Davis. We saw him get 11 rushes. Now, maybe that was more of the snow and weather element, or it could be they want to preserve James Cook for later in the season, and we start to see Ray Davis maybe get 8 to 10 rushes. So that would be a desperation play. The other desperation play is Sincere McCormick. Not my brother, not related to me, but he could be a fantasy option for you this week. Listen, if Alexander Madison and Zamir White are ruled out, McCormick is going to be the lead rusher in that game. He had 12 rushes for 65 yards against one of the better rush defenses last week.
Yeah, I sincerely did not know who that was when I was watching that game. And that was, when he started, I know you mentioned him, that the team really likes him. And then we saw him on field get 12 carries. Like, it's all intriguing. It's all pointing in that direction. So, yeah, if those other guys are ruled out,
yeah,
we could see old S. McCormick on the football field toting the rock. Sincere McCormick. It's such a crazy name, Sincere.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I love those. And then also, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, but Chase Brown needs to be in your lineups. Okay, like I know he's 4 back-to-back. But based on roster construction, you probably have him as your 3rd running back if you don't have a running back on bye because of his late ascension to the roster. But if he needs to be in your flex spot if that's the case. So I just want to mention that he's going to absolutely dominate this week. So big ups to Chase Brown.
Yep, I agree.
All right, cool. Let's move over to wide receivers. Shane, red light wide receivers. You go ahead, spit them off.
You kind of mentioned it, and it goes with my red light quarterback, but it's Deebo Samuel. Like, the struggle is real for Deebo. Like, he has been, I think it's like 65 total receiving yards over his last 3 games.
It's been terrible.
It's been terrible. Hasn't scored a touchdown, I think, since week 5 or 6. Hasn't been to double-digit PPR games in 3 games in a row. And then, so if you just looked at that, but then now factor in the Bears, who have, like, it's top 10 in fewest fantasy points allowed to the position. I think they've only allowed 6 or 7 touchdowns to wide receivers this year.
I mean, could we see him getting a couple more carries? Because, Guerendo's
Maybe
3rd string running back. Chicago's not great against the run. Deebo Samuel's really good running the ball.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? But either way, he would need to score a touchdown on as a running back in order to give you a usable week, and I just don't see that being probable. So, yeah. My red light wide receiver is I have 2. It's another 2-for-1 special. It's from the same game. So I'm highlighting the Miami Dolphins versus the New York Jets. And I'm taking Garrett Wilson and Jalen Waddle. Both very similar in their roles, number 2 guys right now. I mean, with Garrett Wilson, I mean, the Jets have been struggling. That's no secret. I mean, you can see it on the field. But, I mean, Adams looks like he's Rodgers' favorite target. He was getting all the early work last week. And it's just that's the signs that is pointing to. Garrett Wilson's still good. He's still going to be catching 5 balls for 40 to 50 yards. But if he doesn't score that touchdown, you're just not very happy with the performance. Miami's giving up the 2nd fewest points per game to wide receivers and the 2nd fewest yards. and the Jets are giving up the third fewest. So they're both the top 5, top 3 defense against the pass. And I'm not excited to start either one. Jalen Waddle. I mean, Waddle's only had like one good game. He had like 140 yards and a couple tuds, but I mean, outside of that, he's been completely absent. So either one of those, I'd be very, very scared going into week 14 if I need a win.
Yeah, I had Garrett Wilson down as 2, so that's just, guys, you should be looking at benching him. Like, he's very, like, it's like Debo. He's failed to reach double-digit points in 3 straight games also. It's just been the connection's not there. And, like, for the Miami thing, it's like it is a bunch of mostly A-Chain and Jonnu Smith is getting a bulk of the targets and receptions there.
Yep, absolutely. Did you have any others you want to mention?
Nope, those were my main.
Okay, cool. Let's move over to green light wide receivers. Shane, who is your green light wide receiver this week?
So I got a couple multiple options. I'll kick off my first one and I'll let you go. But I think I wanted to provide a little bit more this week with so many teams on the bye. My first guy marries up with your shocker of the week, and it's Jacoby Myers. You briefly mentioned him.
My ex-best friend, Jacoby Myers.
I was really honestly shocked when I looked at his production, like 15 PPR points or more in 4 out of his last 5. The guy has seen 26 targets in the last 2 games. He's caught, I think, 16 or 17 of those for over 200 yards. It's insane production that I was honestly kind of quite shocked about. It's quiet production. And then you factor in the matchup, which you kind of mentioned. Tampa Bay is just, they're the 30th ranked passing defense in the NFL. Bottom 5, bottom 6 in fantasy points to allowed receivers. I just think it's him and Brock Bowers in that offense right now.
Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Jacoby Myers has just been a specimen so far over the last couple of weeks. So very usable. It should be in your lineups this week. I would agree with that. My green light wide receiver of the week is someone that I can't believe we haven't mentioned prior to this episode.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
Oh, yeah.
For the Tennessee Titans. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, sure, he only catches 2 to 3 passes a game. However, the majority of those have been touchdowns. I think he has 1 game since week 6 where he hasn't scored a touchdown. Last week he had 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy has just been phenomenal. 8 targets last week. Only caught 3 of them, but 8 targets last week. Yeah. So very intriguing. Taking on the Jaguars, they're giving up the 4th most passing yards per game to wide receivers. I mean, this guy, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, has big play written all over him. And Will Levis likes to go deep. We like Will Levis this week. So if you're hurting, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine may be your answer.
Yeah, I like that he had his highest target game of the year last year, and I think it was his 2nd highest yardage game. So he's not just the Jameson Williams, maybe now, hopefully, not just the big play boom bust guy, maybe a little bit more consistency.
He's a big justice right now. He's getting the boom, boom, boom. getting a lot of booms, no bust right here with Westbrook-Ikhine.
Yep. The other guy I like is take out last week is Khalil Shakir. Like, let's take out the big snow game where there was limited passing going on for Buffalo in that game.
Yeah, you can't talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Before that, he had 2 top 25 wide receiver finishes where he saw 9 and 12 targets in both of those games. I like the matchup this week. He goes to the nice weather dome confines of Los Angeles to face a Rams defense that has allowed the 5th most yards per reception this year. And they've given up over 20 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers this year. I think this is probably a bigger passing game for the Bills, and look for Shakir to probably get that 10-target game again.
Yeah, I love Shakir, especially with everybody else on the field too. Like, we should see Keon Coleman on the field this week. Amari Cooper should be back as well. I think he was back last week as well.
He was,
but they should they should have their full arsenal of weapons. Hopefully Kincaid is on the field as well. We'll see how he develops throughout the week. But I mean, Khalil Shakir, Little Shaker has just been a great piece for fantasy wide receivers. So I'm all for that.
Yeah. And then the other guy that's going to probably be outside of the top 30 in most rankings, but I think he could be top 24 guy this week, is Darnell Mooney. And I think ignore last week for a couple of reasons. It was his first game coming back from the hamstring injury. So I was a little bit shake off the rust game. And B, I don't think we see another game this year where Kirk Cousins throws 4 interceptions and gives up fantasy production that many times during a game. But if you look at before he got hurt in that game, I think it was in week 11, Mooney had 3 straight top 20 wide receiver finishes. I think this is a game where they're facing a defense that have given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers at over 32 points per game. And they are bottom 5 in passing yards allowed per game. So I think the matchup's good. I think Mooney coming out of that game with no re-injury to the hamstring was a positive sign. So just erase what happened last week out of your mind.
Yeah, most importantly, the narrative. It's the Kirk Cousins revenge game, okay? Playing his old team, Vikings. He's going to want to show out. What's the best way to do that? Put the ball in Darnell Mooney's hands. So he was on my list as well. I was going to mention it if you didn't, so I'm glad you did. Tip my cap to you, sir. That was a good pick. All right, let's move over to tight ends. Shane, who is your red light tight end this week? Who do you not like?
There's a couple guys I don't like actually this week. One is Tucker Kraft. I know he's coming off a 14 or 15 point game last week. And they may be without Romeo Doubs again with that concussion issue, which that does help him as far as targets. But I mean, there's been no better team than Detroit against tight ends this year. I mean, they're allowing 5 fantasy points per game. I should have learned my lesson. I went ahead and started Cole Kmet last week against them, thinking, oh well, he could still get 7 targets, and 7 targets good. No, it's not. It's not. Production against Detroit does not happen.
Yeah, he's on my list as well, and it's hard to put him on the red light list because that wide receiver room is so wide open as well. So it's not like you have a number 1 target in that offense. There is no number 1 target. Jayden Reed gets some, Christian Watson gets some. Dobbs, if he's healthy, he'll get some. But Tucker Kraft has been a reliable piece for Jordan Reed. So it's tough to red light him, but at the same time, it's just this matchup is terrible. Who do you think wins that game? Do you think Detroit wins at home?
Yeah, I think they're going to win at home.
I think so too. I feel like they're going to win. So either way, Tucker Kraft is a no-go this week for me as well. So who's on your green light list?
All right. So for those maybe who haven't seen the show or this section of the show for my green light tight ends, I'm not giving you guys in the top 15. I'm giving you guys that are going to be way at the bottom of your waiver wires. They may not be projected for many points, but listen, we have hit on guys in this section before. Like last week, I gave you Noah Gray and Theo Johnson, who both hit 10 PPR points. And if you are streaming tight ends, you will be thrilled with 9 or 10 fantasy points as your floor for sure. So there are 2 streaming low guys to go and get this week. One is Luke Schoonmaker for the Cowboys. I have not heard any positive reports yet about Jake Ferguson returning.
I was going to ask you about that.
I have not. There's not been any positive reports. Not even him working to the side with trainers or doing position drills or anything like that. So that's making me feel less and less confident in that he's going to be back to play. The matchup is just great. He's facing a Bengals defense that just allowed Pat Freiermuth to go off for, I think it was 20 PPR points. They've given up a score to opposing tight ends in each of the last 4 games. So I like Schoonmaker in this matchup. And then this would be my deepest tight end call of the year. I'm going to call it right now. And that is nobody other than Grant Calcaterra for the Eagles. And I know you're probably thinking, what? Who? We're going to do a what? We're playing a Calcaterra? What? Listen, Dallas Goddard hurt his knee last week. I don't think he's going to play this week. Like I said, you're just looking, if you're streaming, you're looking for that 8-point, 10-point floor. There's been 3 times I looked this year when he had gotten 3 or more targets. Here's what those games look like. He went caught all 4 of his targets for 67 yards, caught all 3 of his targets for 58 yards, caught all 5 of his targets for 32 yards. So when he's gotten 3 or more targets, he's gotten that at least 8 fantasy point floor. So the Panthers are the worst team against tight ends all year. They've allowed over 14 fantasy points per game to the position. Philly may not need to throw a lot in this game, but listen, he could be a guy that gets you that 8-point floor at least.
I mean, you're on the money. You're spot on with your analysis, the pick. As soon as you said his name, I couldn't help but to laugh. Grant Calcaterra. Yeah, I mean, just for you, Shane, I'll be putting in a Grant Calcaterra first touchdown scorer for that game. He's going to score the first touchdown, and that's going to win me some money. So I love it. I love it. I can get behind that. My green light tight end is no surprise. It's Will Dissly. Okay, Will Dissly has been pretty solid as of late. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been, fantastic scoring tight end, but he's been serviceable for your tight end spot. And I think that's what exactly we're going to get this week. Kansas City's given up, I think, the 4th most yards to tight ends, and they've been bad all season for tight ends. So Will Dissly is a constant target for Justin Herbert, and I think he's going to be this week as well because some players on his team can't catch the ball. Quentin Johnston. And that was such a bad drop. So, yeah, I mean, I love Will Dissly this week. Good matchup, great team. I'm excited for that game. I'm glad. It's on Sunday Night Football, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football. We got Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. Great game. So I'm excited for that, and I want to have Will Dissly in the lineup.
Yeah, I'm a little upset. Like I underbidded for him on my waiver wire to cut Cole Kmet for him this week. I missed out on him by $2.
$2, Shane.
Here's what I like. Well, because I know what I was thinking. I was like, okay, people are going to look at what happened last week. What happened last week? 1 target, 0 catches against the Falcons. And I was like, okay, well, people are going to be like, okay, they're not going to make a bid on him. Like they may try to do a 0 bid, but they're not going to put dollars on him. But what I like about that call is I would say there's a strong chance Ladd McConkey misses that game against the Chiefs. So now you're looking probably at Dissly being the number 1 targeted person in that offense.
Hello, Josh Palmer as well.
Palmer, yeah. So
that's awesome.
McConkey's dealing with a shoulder sprain and a knee sprain. It's 2 issues. So.
Yeah, he's banged up, and to be fair, I feel like they're going to make the playoffs regardless. Yeah. So if they want to keep him healthy for the playoffs, so we'll be monitoring that as we go along. But I think that about does it, right? That's our last green light tight end. So thank you very much for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, go pick up Grant Calcaterra, and he's going to win you your fantasy matchup. Okay, you heard it here first from the infamous Shane O'Mac. That's what we bring to you guys over here at the Fantasy Roadshow. But we'll see you guys next week. We'll see you Sunday, live stream, live on YouTube and Twitter. Go check us out and join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. We're talking lineups, last-minute adjustments, and just talking ball. Come hang out with the boys. Other than that, everybody knows what to do. Buckle up.